My maiden name was Ridenhour, and my great-grandfather was Williams Ridenhour, and he came out here to California in 1849 to the gold fields in Marysville, around Marysville, and he was always one step behind the gold somehow, but he managed to make something anyway. He didn't want to go back to Missouri, so he went down the Sacramento River to San Francisco and then started up through the, he came up on the Petaluma River to Petaluma. He had his ox team, and he was looking for land that was not part of a land grant. His family had had a bad situation with the Spanish government in Missouri before 1800, before it became the Louisiana Territory. They had land there from Spain. And he had, his family had a bad time proving their ownership of the land, so he didn't want anything to do with land grants. So he came north until he found land that was no longer a land grant, and that was at the border of the El Molino Rancho, where it hit the Russian River. Beyond that was not owned. So he crossed the river, and I don't know, he took the land. How he got it, I don't know. He just said, maybe this is, he said, this is mine, I don't know. So in a homestead you get just so many acres. Well, he got that, and then for a long, long time he was the only white settler out there on the Russian River. And this was just below Hacienda. This is where it was, just down the river from Hacienda. And then as people, the mountain men, and people started coming through when the fur trading went out. There were fur traders that just kept coming west. He paid them individually to homestead some more land, and then he bought it from them. I think the first time I ever went through Korbel Winery was about 10 years ago. After, I don't think my dad ever did. It was just one of those things, because the old man, Korbel, old Frank, I guess his name was, he was, well, I have all these papers at home, so I know this happened. Every 4 or 5 years he'd move the grapevines over another 2 rows until he'd go just far enough that it would get my grandfather mad, and they'd hire another surveyor, and they would come out, and 3 times Korbel's paid the surveyor off, at least, until finally they got over to where they hit the road and they couldn't go any further, but they had about almost 3/4 of an acre of our land under their grapevines, you know. But all they ever did was just talk about it, you know. Nobody ever did anything about it until Hex bought Korbel's, and then they brought somebody in again to survey. And I remember that one of the Hex, I don't remember which one it was, came over to the ranch one day with a great big bottle of champagne and said, you know, look at what we found in these records, you know. And my Aunt Leola was laughing, and he said, now we can do several things here. We can rip up all these vines, which we really don't want to do, or we can give you a case of champagne every year, which my aunt says, but I don't want that. And so they just finally she said, it's enough just to have somebody finally admit this happened. The bands were wonderful. Also at the Grove in Guerneville. And that was a neat place. It's too bad that burned. It had 4 Eastdale canoes up on end in the middle of it. It was an inside when it was right next to Gory's Tavern. And it when you went in, it had a balcony across one side. But it had these 4 beautiful canoes up in the middle with ferns or something around them. I don't remember that. And the bands, Mr. Harris, I guess, when he had Rionito, brought in the first bands, but I can remember Harry Owens down there, and Kay Kaiser. There was another one who I don't remember, but he was wonderful. He had plaid bandstand, fronts to this music stands, and about every 2 songs he would throw the baton up in the air and yell, "Scotch and soda time," and everybody would run madly to the bar, you know.